Welcome to Code with Kurt, the channel that brings you the latest Google Sheets and Google Apps Script videos. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to take a sidebar HTML and toggle through your records on a Google Sheet. So here I got my records in the table here. Bill Smith, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Mario Andretti, and Mason Mount. And then I can come over here. I got my first record showing. I can toggle, show my second record, third record, fourth record, and fifth record. I could try to go, but it only allows me to go to 5. I can go back and toggle through there. So I'm going to show you how I put this together using Google Apps Script and an HTML file as well. So let's get started. So first I got my Google Sheet here. I got it named HTML Records. I got my sheet name of contacts, and all I have here is just a list of records. No formulas or anything, just pure data here. I got my header record here, and then I got my 5 records underneath. So next I'm going to move on to the Google Apps Script. I'm going to go to Tools, Script Editor. We're going to give this a name. Hit OK. And the first thing I'm going to copy in my code.js. I'm going to copy in my 4 functions I'm using for this project, and copy it in here. So I got it copied in here. I'm going to hit Save. Next, I'm going to create my HTML file. So I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to go New. I'm going to go HTML file. I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call this one Records. I'm going to hit OK. So now I got the basic structure of my HTML file. I'm going to go back to my code.js, and I'm going to go over a couple things. So here is my add menu, and basically what I'm doing is I'm adding a custom tab up here so I can select it for my screen over here on the side. So down here I got my add menu, which is created as custom. I'm going to call it records form. And what I'm doing here is I'm starting a form. Start form is my function up here. What this function does is it takes my records HTML here from file, HTML output from file, and I'm setting a title to it. And this is displaying it as a sidebar. So basically this takes the file and displays it in the side here. This here adds the custom menu button to call this to happen. And lastly, this is an on open statement, meaning when you open up the file, it fires out this function, add menu, which then brings up the sidebar. So these 3 are kind of interconnected. The next thing I'm going to do is my get list. Now this is going to get my data on the HTML page, or this is going to get my data on the Google Sheets sheet here. So I'm getting all this data, and I'm going to take it to the HTML page. So I'm declaring my active sheets. I'm declaring my contact sheet here by name, calling it record sheet. I'm getting the last row. And in this statement, I'm returning an array here. So I'm starting with 2-1, which is row 2, column 1, which is right here. And I'm going 6 columns over, which takes me over to this over here. And this middle statement is get last row -1. So the reason I got -1 here is because I don't want to take, this is, you're saying how many rows you want to take. So I got a total of 6 rows here, but I don't want to take the first row, so I'm going to go just 5 rows here. I'm showing how many records there are. So this binds these records into an array, which I can use on the HTML side. So I'm going to go back over to records HTML. I'm going to start building this. I'm going to copy in my input statements that basically displays the data. So I'm going to put this in the body here. So here I got my first name, last name, street, city, state, and zip. These are my 6 fields. And I got my button, that goes this direction. I got my button that goes that direction, next record, and this is the previous record. I got my value of the record here, stored here, and I also got this hidden box here, and I can show you how that's going to come about here when I get to the JavaScript. So I can hit save, and I could go up here, and I'm going to run this function here. I'm going to clear through the security here. So review permissions. I'll click my account, hit advanced, go to HTML records, hit allow. So there we got that. I'm going to call it again. So, oh, there it is, right there. So this is kind of starting to build. Here's my display. We just built our display. Right now it does nothing really functionality-wise. But next thing we're going to do is we're going to pump these records in using some JavaScript. So I'm going to exit out of that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to my HTML page. I'm going to go up to header here, and I'm going to copy in my script code, which is my JavaScript, and I'll explain what all that does. This basically is what makes everything happen. So I got this all copied in here. I got my script tags here, which are important. That signifies it is JavaScript by default. And my first function is load records. And what this does is it calls this Google Apps Script code right here that's kind of merged into JavaScript here. And it returns this function with an AR. This AR is the array that's coming back. So what it's calling, and then at the end of this function is my get list down here. So this is one big function here. There's a lot in between here because I'm doing a lot of different stuff in between, but this get list is calling this function on this page right here, get list. And this is binding this array of the data of the rows here, bringing it back all the way to the HTML, back up to here to this. And this is where it kind of spits it out right there. And then we use this to get the data. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting the record data value right here. Right there. So I'm going to go down here. What I mean by record is I'm going down here. I got this record here, and it's got a value of 1. So meaning we're going to get the first record. So I'm grabbing this value, which is 1, on the initial call. This is what we're doing. I'm grabbing 1. These two statements are output statements, and I can show that later once I get it running. So they are not necessary. You could take them out, but I'll leave them in there because I could show you how the data is moving through this screen by a browser feature on Chrome. So then I'm going to get my record count. I'm setting that to 0 because I want to know the total amount of records here. And I'm using this to kind of get my limits of how far I can toggle back and forth. I know my bottom limit is 1, but I need to know my upper limit. So I'm starting this as 0. And here's my AR. Here's my array. I'm doing a for each row in this table. I'm doing a for each. I'm getting the item, which is the row, and the index of that row. So this will start at 0. The index of this array will start at 0, and then item is my data. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm getting the index here. So I just want to pull whatever the record is, but the index is always going to be 1 less than my record because index starts at 0. My record count I chose to start at 1. So I'm going to do a -1 to align those two things together. So if my index, say, is 0, is the first record, I'm taking my record, which is 1 that I pulled from my HTML below. -1 is 0, so that'll equal my first record. Then I'm setting these values. I'm setting first name, last name, street, city, state, and zip using this element by ID, and the ID matches up with this. First name, last name, street, city, state, and zip. And I'm setting the value, and item 0 is my first column, 1 is my second column, 2 is my third column, and up till I get to column 6. So basically it's coming across here, Bill Smith, like that, in that order. Setting all those. Now that's only if it equals the first record, but it's going to keep spinning through here. And then what this is going to do is it's going to get a total count. So I'm counting the amount of rows, which is 5 in our case. So from that total count, I'm setting the max record. I'm setting this in on my ID. Now this is a hidden field down here, but I'm using it as a storage spot. So we know our upper limit, our max limit. So that sets our first function here, is basically getting the data for load records. And I'll initially load our screen with the first record. Now the next two functions I got is next record and previous record. And these are called by these on-click triggers here, these actions. On-click, which is going to call the previous record when you're going in this direction. When you're going in that direction, you're going to say next record. So let's go to the next record first. The next record is going to get the record number, whatever it is set, it's going to grab it. We're going to get the max record number too. And then from there, we're going to take the number record plus 1, which will be our next record. And this number function is just converting this record into a numeric. So this adds up to be, it turns this numeric, so this can be an adding clause instead of combining the strings together. This is doing a numeric add. Then if my next record is less than equal max record, which then I should be good, then what it's going to do is going to take the next record, it's going to store it in our record field, it's going to store back the next one, and then it's going to load records again. So then it cycles back through this, where it grabs the record, goes through, tries to match that number record with our array, it finds it, it's going to display it, it stores our max total again, and then we're done. And we can click it again to go up the records. Then our previous record is different, slightly different. Still grabbing the record, still we're taking the number minus since we're going back down. And now we know the previous record is greater or equal to 1, which 1 is going to be always our first record. Then we're going to store that previous record back into our field down here, right down here, and then we're going to load the records again, cycling back through here again. So that completes this part, this whole thing. The last statement we got to do is we got to initially call this, because when we call it, it's going to come through. It's not going to hit the JavaScript. It's just going to display this. So we need a way to call our first function here, right when everything is done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a JavaScript code right below here that's going to call the first function to kind of set our screen initially. So there it is. So I'm going to do the load records with the script tags here. That's going to call our first function to get our first record loaded. So we can hit save there. I'm going to go to code.js here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get our menu up. So I'm going to call this. I can either do this or I can get out of the whole screen and go back in, because this will add it in. But I'm just going to call it right here. I'm going to hit add menu. Call it. It's running. Now I should see my menu button up here. So now I can call my screen up, which now it loads our data. And we can just toggle through here, showing this like that. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you before I forget, is I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to show you this console log and how that comes out. So I'm here on my screen here. I'm going to hit over here. I'm going to go to more tools. I'm going to go to developer tools. And now I'm on the console. So I scroll down here. I'll see these numbers come in. But here's my array right here. And this is when I talk about the array coming through. Here, let me stretch this out a little bit. This is what I'm looking at. So I got my key here, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then here is my array. And when I said columns, like this is, the 0 spot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the array. So that's what I mean when the array's coming through. That's that back over here, this AR, and how I loop through here and get the index and the item and all this. So that concludes this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it below the video. If you have any video ideas, please leave it below the video. I'm always looking for ideas. Until next time.